Well, this was a complete fucking disaster. Getting right into it, Ocular Miracle was a mega collab level started in 2017 that was hyped up for a good while. The level was hyped up as this big, cool level with like 40 of the best creators in the game making gameplay and decoration. It was gonna be amazing. It was gonna break the game. Well, it sure did that, but I don't think that this is what they meant. The original version of the level has 822,000 objects, and was later optimized to 415,000 in the ultra low detail mode copy. Already you can kinda start to see the problem. The original level couldn't be rated since it was literally breaking people's games and couldn't be run by most people, so they split the level into 3 parts: Revery, Faith, and Diligence. The fact that they had to split it already tells you that there's trouble afoot, but that's just scratching the surface. You have no idea how bad it really is. So let's take a look into this level. This is the story of miracles into mistakes. But before we start, I gotta make this quick, but it's something that needs to be addressed. A lot of the comments on my last video talk about my voice, and some of the comments are kinda fucked up. To clarify on why I sound like this, first of all, this is my natural voice. I really do talk like this and put weird emphasis on words. Could be my autism, which would honestly explain a lot, but there's more to it than that. Part of the problem with my audio is that I'm using a very shitty headset mic. I don't have a good mic right now, so I'm kinda stuck with what I got. But more importantly, I was born with a cleft lip and palate, which not only made me end up missing a tooth, but completely fucked up the roof of my mouth. So while some of you are definitely exaggerating how bad it is, I do unfortunately have a lisp. So forgive me if I sound funny, but I have a canyon in the roof of my mouth.
Lunatic boy, you sound like an nerd.
A couple more things before we start. The structuring in this video might be a little weird, because this isn't like Peaceful where I knew most of the issues ahead of time and all of the issues were relatively simple and easy to fix. This level has a million little issues, and trying to even think about how they could be fixed is like having a stroke. It's a death by 800,000 cuts. There's so many little issues all over the level that it's like trying to clean 100,000 individual grains of sand where you have to clean them each one at a time. So I guess that's what I'll do. Go part by part. Level by level. Starting things off is Revery. Like the Reverie the creators were clearly in when thinking about how cool this would look, ignoring the ballooning object count. Alright, so where do we begin here? Well, I'll say that the first 8% or so I was able to play is fairly fun. To get an idea of the scale of the issues here, let's start with the spikes. For some reason, they all have an extra spike underneath them, and that's every single spike. Then we have these slanted tech objects, where for some reason, they have an extra one in the middle that they don't need. This is going to become a recurring theme, but there's a lot of itty-bitty details in this level that you wouldn't be able to see while trying to play. Especially in an extreme demon where you're going to be concentrating extra hard on not contracting death. So, you're decorating a part in a 5-minute level. What kind of design are we going to make? How about a million little lines all over the place? Oh, and the glow circles are 240 to 320 objects, made of corner glow. Yeah, we're off to a wonderful start. Subjectively, I'm really not a fan of the line design. It kinda just feels meh and like it's just there to be there. Objectively, it's object heavy, and you know how I feel about object heavy designs. Unrelated, but I find this off-screen interaction here kind of adorable. This part is the beginning of a problem you're gonna start noticing a lot in the future parts. My computer started stuttering a bit when I scrolled to this part in the editor. Why? Oh, I don't know. Maybe it's because Ryunomi decided to use a ton of glow. Like a shit ton. I can't run this part smoothly at 60 FPS. It's like the mentality a lot of creators have. Just add glow for good decoration. See, it's beautiful. Also, for each of the portals, there's about 10 objects of just glow, 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 and rotating stuff. This is the kind of stuff I did in a collab I did with some friends a few years ago, where the whole point was to blow out the object count. That was a joke level. This is a serious project. It doesn't help that because of all this glow, the portals are actually a little hard to tell apart. Cool it with the glow. You know that thing people would do with Peaceful where they'd speed hack it to get it to run smoothly? Yeah, I had to do that here just because of this godforsaken part. For those who can't see the problem here, yeah, not being able to see is the problem here. If you recall my last video like this, I said that it's not a good idea for a repeated design to be object heavy, especially if it's a design you'll be using a lot. This part has spikes that are 30 plus objects. You know, spikes. The thing so prevalent in this game that it's on the damn logo. Levels tend to have a lot of spikes, and this one is no exception. Alright, the previous part was pretty bright, but let's see what the next part has in store. The contrasting lights and darks here is absolute pain on the eyes. White on black or any other dark color isn't inherently a bad thing. Exasperation doesn't hurt my eyes, for instance. But Ocular Miracle has something exasperation doesn't. Well, decoration. A million little designs that makes it feel like your eyes are trying to scan a QR code. Your eyes are constantly jumping from dark to light, and it is painful to look at. This design here is unfortunately a staple of these sorts of big levels. Overwhelm the viewer with so many tiny little things that they automatically assume it's good. This part often has around 4,000 objects on the screen at any given time. Also, what are these random 204 object spikes? Then there's these glow things, this bulky mass of 600 objects. This design wouldn't be so bad at a 1.5 minute, maybe 2 minute level, but a friendly reminder that the full level here is 5 minutes long. This is not the time for deco meant for GD YouTubers to polish their blade of justice to. I haven't talked about the actual gameplay yet, but I want to address the fact that the deco here comes back to bite this part in the ass. You see this jump here? Of course you don't. It's these three little lines that I legitimately could not tell were a part of the gameplay because of how this part is structured. You need to jump off of these lines to make it to the gravity portal, but you can't even see it because it blends in with everything. Good job, you two. You really managed the mom level on this one. Wait, what the fuck? Trust us back. This part is actually closer to what I think the level should have been more like instead of the object spam hell. Granted, I still have some moments here where I look at the glow usage like, add glow for good deco. So let's get into that. Like these cloud things that are around 900 objects total. However, most of the designs in this part, like the double-sided spikes, are just 5 objects. That's pretty sweet. Also, this isn't really important, but it is funny to me. There's a spike decoration here that's just the ground spike deco from update 1.0. It's just funny to me that in this level where we got these massive incomprehensible structures that you don't know what they're made of, there's this small little thing that people were using back when the game came out. Discord light mode active. Flashbang complaints and 100 glow object structures aside, there's one really obnoxious thing in this part that I want to address. Corner piece text when you're making a 5-minute level. Are you insane? And if anyone wants to get on my case for being pressed over this level's object count, maybe the decorators should be more worried about how pressed they are for objects in a 5-minute level. The signature itself is 500 objects, which already isn't great, but then it just has more corner piece stuff here, adding up to over 1200. Sakoop and Hell only got away with this because the level isn't even a minute long. Plus it's 1.9 where the object limit was so much lower, so novice couldn't build the level out until the game literally broke. Add glow for good deco. One of my biggest criticisms for this part has to be the text at the end reading Hell Pegasus, where there's a lot of unnecessary squares. While I'm sure you would want it to be scalable so that you can change things if you must, once the part is merged, it should be optimized as you're not moving it around anymore. 3D blocks, lines, these 2.0 blocks when you make part of the object black with blending. Anything would be better than having so many pixel blocks that literally overlap, so you're just wasting objects. Yes, it's only 474 objects and just pixel blocks, but when you keep having that, well, this is only X amount of objects attitude with a level this long, and with this many things going on, eventually you end up with this disaster piece of a level. You just make more work for your optimizer, especially when, well, I'm getting ahead of myself. This whole part in general uses pixel blocks in a pretty terrible way. Not scaling them up for large sections of just blank block, just throw in a million pixels. Surely it'll get fixed later. And then later never comes. And these are the smallest pixels being used, by the way, not even attempting to fill in smaller spaces with the other pixel object. Look at this, 64 objects when you could do it in just one. Just scale up a blank block, what are you doing? The second segment is called Faith, which is funny because y'all have way too much faith in the structural integrity of this game. Okay, well, first of all, are you sure this super scaled pinwheel won't cause problems? This game tends to throw a bitch fit when you super scale things up too much. Second, the layering here is really weird. Nearly everything here seems to be on layer 54 and 55, so trying to fix anything is going to be painful for anyone wanting to optimize things. And this isn't the last time this is going to be a problem. Third, the use of glow here really just feels arbitrary in some places where you can barely even tell it's there. Add glow for good deco. Fourth is this pixel part, which kind of just pops up out of nowhere and then it's gone. Speaking of pixels, let's take a look at this bunch of pixel blocks here. It's all pixels. My man should have replaced some of them with these bigger pixels so that you can use less pixel blocks. This was cringe in Hell Pegasus' part, and it's cringe here. And relating to that last point, 4x scaling. Use it. One object in place of 16. And finally, holy crap, this part is unreadable. It's nearly pitch black, and if you look in the editor, the blue section is almost 100% invisible, not helped by something I'll address later. And now for a criticism of the actual visuals. The way this part pulses white constantly legit hurts my eyes. I've heard people complain about Scarlet Surge being epileptic, but this is just ridiculous. And the pulses themselves are just bizarre. They did the color trigger trick from pre 2.0 for making the background and the object colors pulse. Now, the background does change color, though inexplicably with blending, so that could be one reason for it, even if I don't entirely agree with it. But the object color and channel 8 just flash from white to black. This is pulse trigger material. But I need the pulse to be sustained. Pulse triggers have the hold time for that. And if you want to say, what about when you die? Surely the screen will go completely black. Nope. Even between pulses, if you die, there's still enough colored stuff around that you can still see relatively fine. I say relatively because the violent pulsing will probably flashbang you to death after just a few seconds. I've seen 9 circles levels that don't hurt my eyes this much. Getting back to how the deco is put together, almost the entire thing is on a single layer. I shouldn't have to explain this, but that makes it far more difficult to fix any optimization issues that might come up, such as the thick outlines also having the regular outlines underneath them. What's the point? That's just another snowflake to add to the avalanche that is this level's problems. And overall, the part really does not look that good. Everything here is kind of just random stuff. Random breakable blocks, random 1.8 deco, random 2.1 stuff, random colored grid blocks, random flat blocks from 1.3. There's no real coherence to any of this. From one boy to another, adding a ton of random stuff does not automatically make your part good. So, you're making a 5-minute core level, already a bad idea. Who should we get to build a part in the level? Oh, I have an idea. How about Zimnoir fucking 12, the guy whose whole style is all about having as much objects as possible? I don't hate Zimnite, but I feel like you either shouldn't have had him build a part in this level, or you should have told him to tone it down a notch. Or 10,000. As an example, there's a ton of little glow pieces in the background. Upwards of nearly 4,000 of these little glow objects in just one layer. And of course, there's more glow used to outline the structures. And if that's not enough, let's drown every orb in so much glow that you can't tell the orbs apart. Add glow for good deco. My main complaint with this style, besides the object count, is the fact that the air deco, rather than being anything vaguely sensible, is just stuff. If you thought I was going to go this whole part without making an Invader Zim joke...
You speak craziness, Earth Boy!
Anyway, getting back to Invader Zimnoir over here, some of the text in the background is kind of insane. Now granted, I don't know what happened in the editor while Zimnite was building this part, but I find it kind of rich to put RobTop fix your editor in a part where there's so much random crap everywhere. Worse though, and something I really have issue with, is this part took me like 3 months. Now, I'm not a skilled creator or anything, but here's a word of advice. Spending a lot of time on a part does not make it good. Work smarter, not harder. This text hidden right above this part is fucking funny. This part might actually be one of the better put together ones as far as object spam is concerned. While there's definitely a few questionable things here and there, it's not the insanity you see in so many other parts. As I clicked through, everything seemed to be on the up and up. You don't have randomly copy-pasted stuff when one object would suffice, and you don't have things with a ton of unnecessary detail. If more parts were like this, I could see the level going as low as 200k, maybe 300k objects tops. Something that's less liable to crash the game. That said, there are still some moments of add glow for good deco, like these little glow circle things that are another 27 objects each. There's enough glow here to make the whole part feel like a fever dream, which frankly describes most of the level. If you want me to say one more good thing about this part, Sequex's logo is pretty cool. It's entirely made out of these little tech objects, and it's only 27 objects. Not bad, Sequex. Getting into Salaxium, why do these slopes have this weird scale down for the sake of this fade, when you could just scale them up and adjust accordingly, more prioritizing very tiny detail over actual efficiency? Are you tired of me bitching about glow? Me too, let's bitch some more. These glow circles are 192 objects. Add glow for good deco. And of course, they're copy-pasted about quite a bit, so have fun. Finally, let's talk about Salaxium's logo here. Each letter is a perfectly solid color, no gradients, which means it is inexcusable how this logo is put together. Here, we have 1,556 objects to make a logo with a lot of flat shapes. And no, making it scalable is not an excuse, because you could just keep it in a separate level and copy-paste it in. When you put it in the level, you replace each section of it bit by bit until you've cut out most of the excessive stuff. Check this out, replacing all this random crap with only a couple or so 3DL blocks. I could go further with this, but I think you get the point, and this is already going to be a long video. Besides, we need to get to the next part, because holy fuck you're not ready for this. Serge's part has by far one of the worst mistakes I have ever seen in Geometry Dash. Let's talk about glow lines. They have their uses. Some parts in this level use glow lines, and while it's a little object heavy, it's not the worst thing in the world. So then we come to this part, and your eyes do not deceive you. This is the worst way you could possibly use glow lines. You could literally use regular ass glow objects, and you would get the same thing. Thousands of objects could come off this part just by replacing the glow lines with proper glow objects. Putting aside that war crime, these spikes earlier in the part have 22 objects when you, again, can barely see a thing when you look closely. And friendly reminder, I'm looking at it through the editor and not playing the level, and zooming in more than you would see in gameplay. Trying to find where Serge's deco ends and 0SR's begins is hard, so I'm gonna jump off here. Hey, how many objects are these weird pointy things? Oh, Jesus! These spikes are over 50 objects. Wonderful. The smaller spikes are 18 objects. It's even worse because you look closely and there's just a bunch of tiny little details that you can't see. Do you even see the faded spike here? In fact, here's the breakdown of the 18 object spikes so that you can see the amount of detail here that is just superfluous. And even better, add duplicating a couple of these objects like these spikes unnecessarily because the object count hasn't yet exited this Earth's atmosphere. Oh, I'm sorry, atomosphere. Add glow for good deco. Ah yes, another core style part. In a level that I reiterate is 5 minutes long. Some of it looks nice, but some of it really is just random shit. Which, to be fair, is kinda just core in general. Friendly reminder to add deco for good glow, just in case you forgot. At the very start of this part, we get flashbanged by a 2,400 object structure made of just lines. This silly little spinning object is 2,137 objects, and it rotates because of course it does. This level isn't laggy enough, let's kick this shit up a notch. We got these saws that are 14 objects, and they are copy-pasted many times over so that they total over 800 objects. Like, damn, this is a lot of copy-pasting. Viper is side-eyeing the shit. You can't even see most of this during gameplay, so it's just taking up space that you literally don't have. That aside, when you look at them under the Special tab, you find out that every saw blade rotates at 69 speed or negative 69. Let's take a look at these little lines here. I wonder what they're made of. Oh. Oh no. You can replace these by scaling these sloped things up to about 1.75x scale, and just doing that. Yeah, it looks slightly different, but it's not something you're going to be looking at in an extreme demon. Also, the superscaling of glow might not be such a good idea because from what I'm aware, superscale glow can get pretty laggy, especially when you have a lot of it. Both Britank and HJ Fod are credited with decorating Jonathan Gitty's part, so I'm gonna split this part of the video here. This last part looks nice, definitely more of what I think of when I hear Ocular Miracle, but again, the problems persist. Once again, we have spikes that are 40 objects. It's getting out of hand, and we're not even at the third section yet. This part does have good use of glow lines. They look cool and all, and they're 40 objects each, which compared to some of the crap we've seen, isn't really that bad. This kind of structure usually can get away with being 40 objects, because it's not a structure that will be repeated too much. But here it does repeat enough to add up to over 700 objects. What I like about this part is that it's one where the background is really dark and the hazards and stuff are all very bright, but not in the eye-melting way that Mannix and Nahul's part did with a ton of tiny stuff. There's a pretty clear distinction between the ground and the sky. That said, this part does kind of overdose just a little. Before I go on to the last thing, I want to point out how these platforms are made. Not to complain or anything, I just think they're neat. Lastly, we need to talk about this end art because for some reason, they made it 6,000 objects, when it could go less if you didn't use the small rectangle object like this. While I don't deny that this end art would take a lot of objects to begin with, you could still cut it down by a ton by just, once you finish building it, start trying to find ways that you can replace parts of the structure and deleting excess until your computer isn't crying in pain. But my heckin' curved lines! You can get your curved lines just fine. The problem is the way you went about filling in the space. I cannot express to you enough just how obnoxious this whole little bit here is. Look at all this space they could have filled in with a few rectangles instead of a few dozen. The fact that the third and final level is called Diligence is funny, because if y'all had any diligence, the level wouldn't be in 3 parts now, would it? Anything is possible, except for optimizing your level. There's 10k glow objects in this part, it's so fucking Glover, man. Add glow for good day. At what point do you say enough? At what point do you look at this and say, maybe I'm glowing too hard? To this part's credit, when it does the glow over the orb or portals, they're at least the same color as the object instead of drowning it in glow. Now, these stars are 77 objects on their own, not counting the glow. I don't want to hear about scalability here because I've already explained it. You can go back and fix it in the merged level. There's also only 3 sizes of stars. I did some experimenting, and I found at least one way of cutting down the object count. What you do is forego the outline entirely, and have the object simply form the shape you want. Basically, the filling in objects are also the outline itself, and then you fill in the center. And while you couldn't do this in 2.1, I'm gonna mention it because it's funny. The redone filling in took me 2 objects, but you could do it in 1 object in 2.2 by just using the non-pulsing star. Oh, what could have been. There's 20 stars in this part, and 77 objects each gets you 1540. When you cut it to 17 each, it's only 374. But you don't want to hear me nitpick some stars, you want to see me stop bitching about the glow and offer some fixes to it. You see these weird glowy things? Yeah, for some reason, each corner of glow is 10 glow pieces. Why? A couple of the glow pieces are so dark they're near invisible, and the way the center white is done is ridiculous. This takes 3 objects, and as you can see here, it's very close. 47 instead of 89, just by messing with the outer glows. What you should have done was just crank that brightness up and the saturation down and you have a much better lighter object. You don't need this much glow. After a screen that hits you with thousands of objects and a ton of glow, We're moving on from this part. Wait, hold on, what does this text say? So first of all, the layering in this part is atrocious. It makes it hard to try and fix anything. The equalizer effect is cool and all, but it does take 4,000 objects. And speaking of object heavy, some of the block design is literally just these connectors spammed all over the insides. In general, the block design, which primarily consists of copy-pasting objects a bunch of times, doesn't really look that good. Friendly reminder that this level is called Ocular Miracle. It's supposed to be an ocular miracle, and yet it falls apart under scrutiny. Don't worry though, if you're struggling to make your deco look good, just break out Old Reliable. On a positive note, it is pretty cute that this part has blocks that were introduced in Clutterpunk. You love to see it. This is truly one of the parts in the entire level. I don't hate it, but is this really a part in this level? Listen to the music here, and tell me, does this really fit the song? There's just no intensity to what wouldn't feel out of place in a daily level. Nothing really pops out at you in this part. You play this part and you'll forget it as soon as you're out of it. To OwnBit's credit, the layering is far better than like every other part. Seriously, why are more parts not layered like this? Y'all will just put everything on one layer and just roll with it. Last part was pretty light on glow. What's next? Oh god damn it. You know, when I said add glow for good deco, I was fucking joking. Starting on a screen with about 10,000 objects on it really sets the tone for how overkill this part is. This is said to be one of the best looking parts in the whole level. But at what cost? Depends on how much you're willing to pay for a computer that can handle this. And the layering. Good god, the layering. No attempt at separation, so any attempt to fix this will hit a wall very quickly. It makes me wonder if Zapkill made a mistake when making this part, if the maniac genuinely built it all like this, or if something went wrong when Dabfla merged it.
Dude, this level kicks fucking ass! Make me want to merge without looking!
How hard are you willing to Glowverdose? Game's still running, add more glow until it stops. I'd like to offer some form of critique on this part, but because someone, whether accidentally or on purpose, put it all on one layer, I can't effectively break things down because I can't select anything on its own. It's like the opposite of the last part, which looked bland but used good layering for once. This part looks incredible, but the layering is something that anyone would recognize as a mistake. And of course, putting triggers over the gameplay has one last kick to the nads. Well, first of all, what the hell kind of transition is this? Lucas Yelka99? I'm just gonna call you Lucas. Is back, and this part also uses even more of the 1.4 blocks, Clutterpunk I loved. Unfortunately, referencing third best RobTop level doesn't negate the fact that you have triggers on top of gameplay again. It's slightly less egregious here because it's at least not on the same layer, for the most part, but it's still a bad idea. You have room here. Use it. Move stuff around if you gotta. The block design is more of the same from before. Just add stuff until you can't tell what it even is anymore. If you can't think of a good block design, just spam stuff until it's incomprehensible. Remember, if I can't tell what it is, that must mean it's good. And also, don't forget... The rainbow color looks nice, but holy fuck. As the old saying goes, add deco for good deco. The block design again feels like a lot of random stuff. It's hard to really put into words what is wrong here, beyond the now tired refrain of, this is not a good idea in a 5-minute level. Oh look, the logo. I sure hope it's not cringe. It's cringe. I'm not gonna touch that, you already know what's wrong and how to fix it. And no, scalability is really not an excuse here. And of course, let's have the portals be black in a part where all the block design is also black. Galaxy brain move. For one last kick to the nuts, we have a near blind transition, where you will in fact die here if you're holding when you can barely see it. Prepare to blow out your fucking computer. My computer is begging you to not put this much glow in a single tiny area. I'd be shocked if anyone could run this part smoothly. This is the worst glow overdose in the entire level. 4,000 to 5,000 objects on screen at all times. And some of this stuff moves with the player. If your computer is still running at this point, it won't be for long. And of course, it wouldn't be an obnoxiously glow-heavy part without making the portals black so that you can't tell them apart. And before you say it, no, the particles being different colors will not help. Have fun seeing the particles when there's enough glow here to kill a mobile player. There's so much glow that actually seeing the gameplay is difficult. I can barely ever tell the ground from the sky. That should be a sign that things have gone very, very wrong. Here we go again, the usual, spikes with 40 objects, object-dense block designs, and the classic, add glow. Just add glow. Don't even think about it, add more glow, crash the fucking game! This part is about as laggy as Ryu Glowme's part from earlier. Gee, I wonder why. Can you imagine playing on a crappy computer and somehow surviving this far into the level, and then finding yourself getting lagged to death? Sucks to be you. On top of the usual issues of glowing harder than the average tread, we have another gameplay issue. In particular, these little custom portals look really nice, right? Unfortunately, because there's so much glow in the background, it blends in. This background is quite beautiful for the most part, but it's not a good idea to make glowy portals with a low opacity on top of a glowy background, especially not ones that are so thin. Worse still, because of the portals being damn near invisible, the wave can almost feel like it's impossible because you literally can't see the portals. It took me many tries in practice mode before I even realized the second mini portal was there because it fades into the background way too easily. Pink on pink, are you insane? And of course, every orb here also has a low opacity, which is the kind of dick move you see in daily levels for a shitty coin route. Can we not cover up the gameplay when my computer is crying in pain already? Honestly, I'm just gonna run through this last part quickly, because the final part in the level is basically a culmination of all of the issues we've discussed throughout this video. Unnecessary duplicate layout shells, cringe layering, squares that could be scaled up, and you guessed it, add glow, some of which is hidden behind blocks. There's a touch trigger here that affects group 1000. Oh, and while we're at it, make sure to have a mass of glow and stuff move with the player so that the game is stuttering trying to keep up. And as a final fuck you for playing, we have this spike corridor that's just an extra 1000 objects. We're already well beyond 800k, what's a few thousand more, am I right? Before we finish up with the levels, I want to talk about one last little thing. I've been ignoring the end screens because they're really not relevant when it comes to the full level, as they're not a part of the full level. However, I do specifically want to tackle the cubes, because I found a funny optimization. Specifically, I want to point out Serge with his little black and white checkerboard pattern. Thankfully though, despite my expectations for the worst, they did not do something deranged for this pattern. Instead, they just used little pixel blocks to make the squares. 16 objects, not too bad. However,
We can do it in 9!
what you do is you put a white square down, and then you place some black squares down in the pattern like so that the white square basically makes up for 8 blocks instead of just being 1. Cool stuff, huh? I've been going on and on about how they should have optimized this in this video, but believe it or not, they did. And they basically cut it in half. What the hell happened here? Opening it up was truly eye-opening. What happened mostly was just getting rid of a lot of the glow, subtract glow for good optimization, which funnily enough doesn't make the level look as bad as you would expect. Some logos were outright replaced with simple text, like Hell Pegasus and Zero SR. Some of the optimized logos look kinda bad though. IRL's logo in particular looks like someone just put text and then spammed glow down, which to be fair is kind of how the original one looks. At least it's only 427 objects. Zim9's part just looks sad without all the glow, like you took its toy away. On the bright side, or rather not so bright, the orbs no longer have the glow spam that makes the orbs nigh indistinguishable. Those 30 plus object spikes in Ryu Glowme's part, now they're only 9 objects. Serge's part no longer has the obnoxious glow line usage. Oh wait, scratch that, for the most part. There's so much here that I could just go on all day about. Master's part has much less of the lines. Hell Pegasus no longer has the walls of tiny pixel blocks. Jonathan plus Brick Tank is missing the giant wheel. Zapkill without glow looks kinda cursed. And you better believe the layering is still fucked. They really just deleted basically the entirety of HJ FOD's logo. Holy shit. By the way, right next to HJ FOD's screen is these two spikes layered right on top of each other that have absolutely no groups and absolutely no purpose. If that isn't symbolic of this entire level, I don't know what is. The thing about this though is that while I believe it would make for a better official version than the split version in terms of playability, this feels like a bandage on a cannonball wound. It feels like it was more hastily done, rather than an actual effort to try and cut this down as much as physically possible. Things like Salaxium's logo are left untouched. Manix's part is still this painful to look at thing. Zero's part still has these 50 object spikes. It feels like they were just desperate to get it into something resembling a playable state and started cutting mindlessly, slashing all the easy stuff. It's why I feel the only true way the level could have been optimized would be for several parts to be replaced, especially since the layering is abysmal in many of them. For a few closing thoughts directly on the level itself, let's get into why I've been saying 5-minute core level as a criticism every few parts. Core style is all about having a ton of tiny little details everywhere. This, by design, is guaranteed to be object heavy. As you might expect, the longer your level, the more objects it'll take to complete. So you can imagine why I've been mauling over this level using core as the style of choice in several sections. You can either have a 5-minute level or you can have a core level, but you can't do both unless you're extremely cracked at optimization. And these people clearly are not. But if you refuse to find God and insist upon my 5-minute core level, here's some tips from a guy who's never done a core level. 1. Don't leave random stuff just behind other stuff that you will never see. 2. Don't be afraid to use partial black with blending objects. Make part of an object black with blending, and then use that texture. 3. Don't have so much off-screen stuff. You really don't need to do that. 4. Don't. With that out of the way, here's an $800,000 question you may be wondering. How much glow is there in Ocular Miracle, including the glow lines? Take a guess. I'll wait. Alright, you got it? Great, because whatever you think it is, you're probably wrong. 347,136 glow objects. Do you know how much glow that is? I've never built a level with even half of that in total object count. Most of you probably haven't. And yet here's Ocular Miracle doing all of that in just glow. Add glow. To put into perspective how much glow that is close to the object count of Knight Rider and How, which accurately describes my feelings here. There is no reason any level should have a Knight Rider's worth of glow unless you're trying to crash the game on purpose. Finally, I want to address the gameplay as much as it is not the main focus of the video. Holy crap, a lot of the gameplay is just portals, and orbs in portals or besides them. I swear, 90% of the game modes in this level, outside of the slower parts, either don't have gameplay, they're just there for transitions, or it is just used for like one click. You just have a ton of ship, UFO, and ball parts that basically play like a cube part, rather than actually using the game modes for what they're made for. The layout creators just opt to add orbs. Half of these parts could just be cube parts and you wouldn't even know the difference. Oh wait, you would, because then maybe less orbs would be covered up by the portals and you wouldn't have as many clicks that you don't even know are clicks. This isn't gameplay, this is just things happening. It gets worse. The way they love to cover up orbs in this level is out of control. Of course there's Bionic Penguin and G, where you have very low opacity orbs and very faded custom portals that I legitimately could not tell were part of the gameplay and not the background. Metal Faces and Guiding Her Tunny's parts have a pulse trigger to make the portals black, in parts that are both already dark. There's Zim Noir 12 having the glow spam on the orbs. The level is hard enough as is, not only to beat, but to even actually play. You don't need to make it even harder to know what's going on. And if you think I'm full of shit, go play Extra Blast by Jerry 4. And if you complain about the invisible portals, I'm going to set you on fire. Do not blind the player, that only makes things more frustrating. This level was hyped up for years, and in the end, all we got was a disaster that broke the game and was promptly forgotten. I distinctly remember hearing about it for a little bit in the time after it was verified, and then within less than a week, not hearing about it much. For comparison, I remember hearing more about I Spy with My Little Eye and the Forbidden Worm level for longer after release than this. So you may be wondering why I kinda just scattershot this, and mainly pointed out a ton of object-heavy designs instead of how I did it last time, detailing how you can fix the problem on everything. For one, it's to demonstrate just how dire this level's situation is. As I said in the beginning, the level doesn't have one big problem. It has thousands of little ones. The point is to demonstrate how, at every turn, you have another 500 object structure that gets copy-pasted, or having a ton of glow that lags the game to an unbearable degree, or you have just a bunch of excessive stuff that you'll never see, or incomprehensibly tiny details that you can't see when you're trying to be an extreme demon. I wouldn't be surprised if at least 50,000 objects were just from excessive stuff like the squares on the Hell Pegasus logo or the spikes in the first part. And realistically, it's probably more. This design is why I believe the level was a bad idea from the get-go. Core style is a style known for being object-heavy, for being denser than a black hole, and you're trying to make a level like that goes on for 5 minutes. You can do a 5-minute level, or you can do a core level, but you can't do both unless you're trying to make corn. I do want to make one thing clear though. As harsh as I've been on the level this whole time, I do not hate Ocular Miracle, nor do I hate anyone involved in it. In fact, I only know who like a few people involved even are, and they're alright from what little I know about them. The reason for some of the more stern attitude is because this isn't one guy with at most 10 creator points who kinda flew under the radar before flying too close to the sun when making a level on his own, not realizing a few mistakes that he made with no real oversight. This is a mega collab of a lot of well-known creators who should know better at this point, who all work together to create this monstrosity. It's also on Gaiden Hurtoni to have realized just how out of hand things were getting, and to have been like, oh shit, we're getting dangerously close to 500k, let's tone it down a few notches before we accidentally the entire game. Or alternatively, you can just give up, look at the object count, and say, let's up those numbers! This goes well beyond just making your game lag. Because of the negligence with optimization, it ended up fucking people over. It allegedly went as far as to break people's save data. And even if that didn't happen, it broke the textures in the game for some people, including Viperin. It's not a bug, it's a feature. No, it's not a feature either. It's not rated at all. And I don't want to hear about how, oh, that's just a few edge cases. People play a ton of different levels all the time, and they never break their games to this extent. It's almost like using well over 40,000 objects in a level is a great way to fuck up your game. At least this time around people weren't blaming RobTop as much as with some other levels, perhaps because even they realized that 800k objects is ridiculous. This level could have been something much better than it actually was. It was supposed to be an Ocular Miracle, and it ended up being a lesson in the necessity of optimization. I think now in 2.2, you could easily cut this object count in half with the new warp tools. Not to mention the special objects that can be used to replace certain objects. Like with the stars as I've shown earlier. So why don't I fix the level myself? Well, first of all, the level is finished, so unlike Peaceful, there's no need to add a personal touch to it. 2, the level's too hard for me to verify it myself, and considering some of this gameplay, I wouldn't want to touch it even if I had the skill. 3, it's not my job to clean up after people who should know better. Perhaps someone else can take in some of the things I've talked about here and try to fix it. I kinda want to move past this level myself. Immersing myself in it to make this video kinda drove me insane. To everyone involved who is still playing this game, and even to those who have quit, don't take this as a sign that I hate you. Take it as more of advice. That maybe you should go over the level again before releasing it when you're dealing with high object counts. And that goes for the rest of you too that are watching this. I'd rather the game not devolve into constantly getting new levels that just break the game. So with that said, the video is over. I won't ask you to like and subscribe, that choice is yours. If you listened to my insane ramblings, I know this was a longer video and it took me super long to finish, believe me, it was stressful as hell. I appreciate you hearing me out and not just dismissing me as some noob yelling at popular level. To end this video, I want to show off some funny outtakes. Enjoy! Oh, fuck! Speaking of, oh my god, finally! Fix any optimization issues that might come up. Random flat blocks from 3. What I like about this part is that, what do I like about this part? There is oh fuck, come on, get back over there, you asshole! Who in God's name decided to put it as a good fuck, what the hell are you trying to say? Do not blind the player, that only makes things more... Testing, 124. Why 124? I do want to make one thing clear though. As harsh as oh my god. I can't get over that line was fucking funny. Alright, so before we end off here, do you guys fucking mind